Welcome to another Stamp with Amy K YouTube Live. And today I'm going to show you a card that I made with the Wildflower Path stamp set from Stampin' Up's, well, I should say it's not so new anymore, the mini catalog that Stampin' Up has going on right now, which is the January to June. And goodness, I'm all crazy kind of crooked. So the January to June 2022 mini catalog, and like I said, it's just a fun stamp set, and it's photopolymer, which is great. It's one of those that you can see through to easily stamp with. It's got some nice sentiments with it, got some good images with it, and it's really, like I said, really easy to use. The flower images line up. This flower image lines up with this stem set. This flower image lines up with this stem set. This one is actually a layering, and we're going to use both of these today. So you'll get to see how those layer one over the top of the other. And then there are some little kind of just accessory flowers and leaves, as well as the little grass image on here. Hey, Karen and Danette, thanks for hopping in. I appreciate you being here today. So, and I see Jean is here as well from Oregon. So thanks for joining. So that is the Wildflower Path stamp set, which is, like I said, it's a really pretty one and a really good one and really easy to use, which is always good in my book. So, hey, Darlene, thanks for joining from Ohio. Hopefully you guys are warmer there than we are here. We're getting some icky snow and such. And Susan from New York and Brenda, hey, thanks for joining as well. So again, this is the card we're making. A couple of the accessories that I used with it is I've got the Tasteful Labels dies, and we're using this one that's kind of the rounded rectangle is what I call it. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but I call it rounded rectangle. So hey, Patricia from upstate New York, are you guys getting a bunch of snow up there this weekend too? We're getting kind of, I don't know, we're supposed to get like a foot here. Ugh. It's been snowing this morning, but hasn't really accumulated a whole lot yet. So hopefully we won't get it too bad. So. Oh, 25. Ooh, burr. That's a little chilly from Ohio, too. So, all right. I also used the stitched rectangle dies, and I used the second largest one. And I'm sure it's a little difficult to tell in here, but I actually cut a frame out. So it's the negative piece, actually, of designer series paper that I used on to sort of frame the wildflower image. So something that's a little bit different. So, oh, 14 degrees in Wisconsin. Brr. So, hey, Mary Kay, thanks for joining. And flurries right now. Yeah, like I said, we've had some, it's been not heavy snow, but kind of a fair amount of snow kind of all morning. And then it warmed up a little and everything is kind of melting. And then we're supposed to get really pounded tonight. So, ugh. Anyway. All right, one thing to remind you of before we get going, the All Together product collection from Stampin' Up! Will be available beginning on February 1st. And it's a really cool set of new products, some great Stampin' blends, stamp set and dies, and coordinating designer series paper. You can get it all in the collection as one item number, or you can order things individually. So you can get the stamp set bundle, which is the Here Together bundle. You can get just the stamp set, just the dies, just the paper, or just the blends. So again, this will all be available beginning on February 1st. And there are details posted on my blog. So if you want to go take a peek at stampwithamyk.com and then go under the Stampin' Up! Online promotions, you'll see it listed out there. So no snow in Florida, but it's going to be abnormally cold this weekend. Yeah, I think it's going to be cold all over here in this side of the world. You know, this side of the U.S., I think is going to be a little chilly and icky and just generally unpleasant. So, all right. So let's get started before I throw anything on the floor, which I almost just did. So we've got some basic white cardstock to get going with. Hey, Denise from Pennsylvania. And Glenda, I'm glad you like the flowers. It's a beautiful, beautiful stamp set. So hopefully, where did I throw the stamp set at? Oh, here it is. Buried it. So it's definitely one that you need to get. It's really easy to use because you can just sort of stamp the pieces that you want. So it's awesome. All right. So I have got a piece of basic white cardstock to start with. And this is cut to about 4 by 5 1/4. It's somewhere around card front size. I wanted it to be a little smaller so I could kind of wiggle things around a little bit on the card front when I adhered it down. But, you know, again, just a little smaller than a card front size. So whatever that would be for you. And a foot of snow is on the way to Connecticut tonight. Yeah, so I think it's not going to be good. So yucky. So, all right. I've got garden green ink that we are going to start with, and I'm going to stamp a couple of the, I think I will start with there are two separate kind of taller stems, and one of them is got a little bit thicker flowers on it, if that makes sense, a little bit bigger flowers, and then one has a little bit smaller flowers on it. So I'm going to start by inking this one, And then we will do the one that's a little skinnier image. Gonna stamp that one, and I'm trying not to stamp it so that, there we go. Okay, trying not to stamp it so that everything is all at one height. So kind of trying to go a little bit taller, a little bit shorter on some of them so that, again, there's a little variation in the height. And stamp this one again a second time. I think I'm gonna stick that, maybe I'll stick it right in here. Changing it up a little bit here on the fly. Again, this is one of those that you can use really easily. However you like to stamp it. You can stamp a few flowers, you can stamp a lot of flowers, however you want to use it. This one works great. So stamp the wider stem, and then I'm going to stamp the wider stem down a little bit lower, maybe about right there. And then I'll do one more of the wider stem, I think. We'll put it over off to this side. I think we'll go way up with this one. And then one more or two more of the little narrow stems, and we'll be done putting that here on or doing this part on the card front. So, all right, stick one more in here, and maybe we'll do one more over here. All right, so I think that's gonna be it for a second. Perfect weekend to stay inside and craft. I do have to agree. So weather seems so strange this year around the world. Yeah, I don't know. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, this isn't terribly unusual weather for us. We just kind of, I just don't ever really look forward to it. So, all right. The next one I'm going to grab is, there are two images and they look fairly similar, and I'll show you them again on the front of the stamp cover. So this is this image that we're using, and then this one that looks kind of like it, only a lot smaller, is the other one that we're going to be using. So we're actually going to layer these one on top of the other. So I've got Flirty Flamingo ink, and we're going to stamp the more solid image first. And I don't know that there's necessarily a right or wrong way to do it, but I generally, on this one, thought it worked a little bit better to stamp the more solid image first, so that I could make sure that I had the flower sort of grounded on the stem, if that made sense. Because if you use just the smaller one, you may end up with your flower floating, and that may not necessarily be the look that you were going for. So, all right, so let me get this one stamped over here. And then we're going to come in with the kind of more, I don't know, more detailed, smaller image, and we're just going to layer it right over the top of the first one. And again, I'm going to hope that I get it fairly straight. It's a little easier to do it when I don't have the camera in between me and the image, but I think we're getting it done. All right, and we'll call that good. And again, it doesn't add a whole lot of difference to it. Hopefully you can see it, but it's just a little more definition, a little bit more kind of a layered stamped look. So I'm going to close up that ink pad, and then I'm going to get these stamps out of the way, and then I'm going to grab my Daffodil Delight ink. And it's kind of a tall, skinny look, which I should keep grabbing my stamp set. So it is this set of little flowers from the stamp case that I'm going to be using to stamp a little bit narrower, taller, well, not taller, I guess it's shorter. I don't know, a little bit narrower stem. We're going to add a couple of Daffodil Delight flowers with that. This one, it didn't match up. There's one flower up here at the top, and I don't know, hopefully I'm not stamping this upside down, but I think I got it the right way around. One flower up at the top that didn't necessarily have a stem that coordinated with it. It was just kind of floating up there, but I think it still works. I thought it was still pretty, so I went with it anyway, even though it wasn't necessarily attached to anything. I thought it looked cute that way anyway. So, all right, go ahead and stamp that one over here. So, hey, from Utah, glad you're here, and I'm glad y'all are liking the stamp set. So then I think we'll add in maybe a couple of little yellow flowers. Whoop, there we go. Got to get it lined up right on this one. And I think we'll add a couple little yellow flowers on this one. There we go. I think that's it for the yellow. Then I'm going to bring in my Coastal Cabana ink and a couple of the kind of loose random flowers, if that makes sense. So got two more flowers here, and again from the stamp cover, it is this flower and this flower that I'm using. So I've got, it's a little bit, oop, there's a glare on it. So there's a little bit of a flatter flower and then a little bit, kind of a small flower that looks similar to that. Those are the two that I'm using with Coastal Cabana ink. All right, so let me put this one up here at the top, the bigger one. And I'm going to do the same thing on this image. So stamping that on there. Then we're going to come, whoop, I almost inked up the wrong side of the block on that one. Going to come in with a little flower and stamp that here. You probably won't be able to see this one, but we're still going to stamp it anyway, just in case. Same thing with this one. I figured, it's nothing worse than putting it together going, oh, I should have stamped that. Now you can see it. So, all right, go ahead and put the little Coastal Cabana flowers down here. And then, I don't know. I think I had another, I don't know, I must have put something Coastal Cabana over the edge, but I think we're going to call that good. I'm going to stop stamping before I make a mess on something. And then the final bit of stamping that you do on this panel is, I did it in Granny Apple Green ink, and it's just the little grass image. So I took that, inked it up, and just sort of stamped it across the bottom of the panel. So just adds a little bit of again, a little bit more of that sort of wildflower field type look. And I did some a little bit higher and some a little bit lower, because if your lawn looks anything like ours, sometimes it's a little taller, sometimes it's a little shorter. So, all right, so that's kind of all for the stamping on the front of the card. So it's pretty simple when it comes to that. Now I'm going to set this aside for a second while I do some die cutting here. So I have got a piece of Heart and Home Designer Series paper, and if you haven't noticed, I do love the wood grains. Yep, it's a thing. And so I have this one cut to about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to grab my second to the largest of the stitched rectangle dies, and I'm just going to try to cut this out so that it's pretty much centered in the middle of the Designer Series paper panel. So that's all I'm going to do is just take this over to the die cutting machine over here, and actually we're going to put the middle of it, take that, and I'll put it back in my designer paper pack so I can use it later, but we're actually just going to use the framing around it for the actual card front. So hold on, I'm going to be off screen for a second. Hope that y'all had a great week this week, and hope that you haven't forgotten about Celebration going on right now, where you get free products from Stampin' Up! For every $50 that you order, now through the end of February. All right, so there's my little frame that I have left. And then here's the centerpiece that I cut out that I can hold on to and use in a different project. So if you haven't heard about Celebration, it's a really good deal. Stampin' Up! Does it. They're actually doing it twice a year now. They do it early in the year, and then they'll do it again in the summertime. So for every $50 that you order, you get to start earning free items from their Celebration brochure. And they also have an awesome joining promotion going on right now. So if you're interested in joining as a demonstrator and getting that discount for yourself, it's a great deal. So you get 2 free stamp sets with your starter kit. So, all right, so I've got a basic white card base. My original one is the top fold card, so that's my kind of standard folding card. I had a card base that was cut that's a book fold card, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 and scored at 4 1/4. And I'm just going to I'm using that one instead of the top fold card. And again, I just use Stampin' Seal, and I'm just adhering it to the card front. And again, it doesn't need to be perfectly centered, just generally centered, because we're going to put the little frame around it anyway. So you're not going to see whether you have it perfectly centered on the card front or not. So yeah, the wood grain really is the best. So I'd started to talk a little bit about your starter kit with Stampin' Up! If you are interested in joining as a demonstrator, you get to pick $125 worth of merchandise plus the 2 free stamp sets from Stampin' Up! You also get a free paper pumpkin kit. It'll just be a random one that Stampin' Up! Will put in your starter kit, and you'll get some catalogs. And you can actually only pay $99 plus tax in your area. It ships for free, so it's an awesome deal. And then once you get your starter kit, you actually start to earn that. Well, actually, as soon as you sign up as a demonstrator, you'll start to get the demonstrator discount, which was at least a 20% discount on everything that you order from Stampin' Up!, which is a great deal in itself. So if you're interested in that or have any interest in hearing more about it, just let me know. I'd be happy to chat with you about it. While I was talking and gluing, I used a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue and just ran a little thin bead around the edge of it. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. I didn't want it oozing out everywhere, but just wanted to make sure it was stuck down all around. So added my little framing on it. Next up, I guess I need to leave this here, is I've got some of the Flirty Flamingo, and this is the 1/4-inch metallic ribbon is what it's called. And it's really pretty. It's got just a little bit of gold running through the flirty flamingo, so it adds a little bit of sparkle to it. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that, and we are going to adhere it to the card front. Again, I'm just taking Stampin' Seal and running it kind of vertically along the top of the card where I want to adhere this at. And then I'm going to take this, and I know generally it needs to go about to the edges of the frame here. So I'm going to take it and do my sort of wide Z where I adhere it down with the Stampin' Seal right in the middle, and I'm going to be putting a sentiment over the top of this, so I don't need to worry about having it super secured, but do want to have it stuck down a little bit so that it doesn't come undone, and you know, then you have ribbon everywhere. So, all right, going to take that and trim it off, and there we go. All right, so a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of something pretty on the card front. Then I'm going to grab a piece of Coastal Cabana cardstock, and we're going to do a little bit of stamping for the sentiment, which I use the happy birthday. There is a really great thank you image in there. I'm trying to think what else is in it. And then there are a couple of just kind of fun sentiments. There's one about my heart is smiling because of you, and then one that I think is a Ralph Waldo Emerson or something quote. So definitely some nice options for sentiments in it. All right, so I've got Versamark ink, and we're going to do some heat embossing. Hey, Joanna, thanks for hopping in from Florida. Glad you're here. And hopefully I didn't totally say your name wrong. So, all right, so again, Versamark ink. Going to be stamping the sentiment here, and I've got white embossing powder from the Basics Embossing Powders pack. And I store mine in a little Ziploc container, which makes it a little bit neater to use. It gives me a wide spot to be able to add the embossing powder to my image, and then a wide spot to be able to dump it back in so that it doesn't, you know, hopefully get all over everything. And sometimes it still does, but I try not to. It contains the mess a bit when I use the Ziploc containers. All right, let me get this closed up and out of the way so I don't accidentally knock it over or send it flying when I turn on the heat tool. Then I've got my heat tool here, my Stampin' Up! Heat tool. The heat tool has 2 settings on it. There's a level 1 setting for drying. So if you're doing something like watercoloring or adding a lot of ink and water to the paper and you want it to dry a little faster, you can use the level 1 setting. The level 2 setting is for heat embossing. So that's what I'm using today. I'm just turning it on and giving it a second to heat up a little bit before I turn it towards the paper. And hopefully you'll be able to see the change here as it goes from the powder form to the embossed look. So it should turn kind of a bright white and get shiny and be really pretty when you get done with it. You do want to keep your heat tool moving along on your project. You don't want to hold it in any spot for too long, just because you can burn embossing powder. And then it turns brown and yucky and not so nice. So, but if you keep it moving as you're going across, as it starts to heat, just keep the embossing or keep the heat tool moving, then you don't have any trouble with it. So, all right, so I've got that done, and I gave it a second while I was talking to cool off a little bit. If you touch the embossing powder immediately when you get done heat embossing it, it actually still is wet and you can smear it. And then again, that makes a big mess. And ask me how I know, because I've done it lots of times. So, oh, hey, Rosie, I hadn't even seen you hop on. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. All right, so I have got the Tasteful Tasteful Labels dies. I had a moment, I'm like, Tasteful Textiles, that's not right. Tasteful Labels dies. And I'm going to use this one, which is, you know, you can obviously see I had cut my other sentiment out of here. It fits pretty perfectly around the sentiment. And I love this set of dies because some of them actually, it cuts and then it embosses along the edge as well. So that's a nice look. You know, we've got a lot of the stitch dies, but it's nice to have some that do the embossing as well. So that's a really pretty look. And I'm just going to take this and run it through my die cutting machine over here to my left. Trying to make sure I have it lined up. All right, and I think I got it reasonably straight. Get that mess out of the way, and then I'm going to grab some Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm actually going to use my little half Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to stick the dimensionals sort of up in the top kind of at the point of the top and the point of the bottom of this, just because I want to make sure. I could put it along the sides, but it's actually probably going to end up pulling my ribbon up even further off of my card front if I do it that way. So I tend to put them towards the center so that they will catch the paper. It may possibly stick a little bit on the ribbon, but that's okay as long as you've got it fairly secure on the paper. That's the main thing. You just want to make sure that it's not stuck only to your ribbon, because then you could end up with potentially having the whole thing fall off your card front, and nobody wants that to happen. So, all right, so we just added that on there. And the final piece, if I can find them in my mess of stuff here, is I cannot stop using these brass butterflies. They are so cute and they're so perfect, and they're flat, which makes them easy for mailing, so I love them, and I can't stop using them. I've been sticking them on everything lately. So I'm just going to add a couple of those here floating around the card front. So I'm going to put a couple down below, and we'll put one up on the sentiment as well. I'm going to put the bigger one up here, I think, today. I'd use a smaller one in my sample card. I think we're going to put a bigger one up there, and then take this one little small one and maybe stick it right over in here. All right, and that's it for the card front. So on the inside of the card, hey, Paula and Becky, and I appreciate you hopping in for the first time, checking out the video. Hopefully you like the card. All right, on the inside of the card, I kept it fairly simple as well. Did a little bit of stamping, so I've got the garden green ink, and I used the kind of the thicker or the wider of the stems again, and I'm going to use my Flirty Flamingo flowers to stamp over this. So I'm going to stamp this up the side. And the butterflies are they're awesome. They're, like I said, they're so pretty and they're so easy to use, and they're so flat that you can easily mail them, which is something that I love in an embellishment. So things that are bigger and lumpier and cost the extra postage, I still use them, but I do love the flat ones so much. And these are so pretty too, so they're really easy to use. All right, I've got the Flirty Flamingo more solid flowers I'm going to be stamping here first. And then I'm going to come back in with the little bit more detailed flower image after I stick my finger in the ink, and hopefully not stick it anywhere else. And try to get it lined up here. All right, and layer that over the top. And then I'm going to add the little grass image as well. Oh, the name of the stamp set, hang on one second. Let me pull it over. It is called Wildflower Path. And it's in the Stampin' Up! January to June mini catalog, and it's a really good one. So like I said, it's got just all sorts of little flower images and greenery images and some good sentiments in it. So it's very, very cute and really easy to use. So if I can use it, anybody can. So, all right, then I've got Granny Apple Green ink, and I'm going to stamp the grass image in that. And I'm just going to stamp it kind of right over the top of the flowers. All right. And then I also had a little piece of, you're welcome, Vicki, no problem. So I also had a little leftover piece that I had trimmed off of the card front when I made it, because I cut my designer series paper into, 6 by 12 pieces. So I had a little 1/2 inch that I trimmed off the card front, and I just am sticking it over the top, or over the bottom of the panel. So that's optional. If you don't like the look of it, you don't have to do it. But like I said, I figured there's no sense in wasting the designer paper. It's pretty, and I thought it looked kind of cute. Made it look almost, I don't know, like a flower box or something that you were putting it in. And flipping it over and trying to get it somewhat straight here on the back. And then it was actually a 4.5 inch wide, so they got a little, or 4.25 inch wide, so there's a little extra on there. But you can always trim it down, so no problem at all. Then I'm going to add a little Stampin' Seal to the back of it, and we'll stick it inside the card base, and that's going to be it for today. So thanks so much for joining. I appreciate y'all being here. Let me see if I can get this centered and straight. Or one or the other, I guess, centered or straight. Prefer to have them both. All right, then I'm going to grab the bone folder and do a quick crease here. And if I probably forgot to say, but I use thick basic white on my card base. I don't know if I said that earlier or not, but it is. So, all right. So there we go. That is it. So this is my sample card I made ahead of time. This is the one I made today. Again, a little bit, tiny different layout on the how I stamp the flowers, but that's kind of the fun of using one of these builder sets, is you can stamp them however you want to, and each one can be a little bit different. So, all right. So that is it for me today. I appreciate you all being here. I will plan to be live on my Facebook channel around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Tuesday, and then back here on YouTube live around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Friday. So thanks again for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And for those of you like me that are in the snowstorm, stay warm, stay safe, and have a good weekend. Talk to you later.